everybody's ready? We're ready. Speed at the bottom of the helix. I still have to tally up the count for the most NMRA clinics by one person to date, but certainly a contender for the top 5 has a tongue twister model train business called Touch of the Brush Model Weathering. Along with weathering trains, he loves creating realistic scenery. So please welcome back for the third time, Joey Guinto.
Thank you, Gert. And also, Robert, great job on your layout tour. A really, really beautiful layout. I love that garage. Really nice. I like to have one of those one day. That's pretty cool. So today, we're going to be doing some carving rocks from foam. And I've always loved doing plaster, using plaster, making plaster rocks, and using molds. But for me, it was always more time consuming, letting it dry. And I enjoy doing that. I still do a lot of that, but I got into carving foam. And to me, it's just, I don't know, way more relaxing for me. And today I wanted to show just a quick presentation and a little how-to on how easy it is to carve rocks from making foam. So we're going to go here to my little desk here, and I'll move the camera over, and we'll start a little process of carving out the foam here. So this is our blank canvas, and with the weathering business that I have, I created a few dioramas to show off a lot of the work that I have done for clients as well as my own models. And I am in the process now of building one for O scale models, and I already have one for HO, and I'm deciding to build one for N scale. And so this one's going to be for O scale, and it's going to go a little bigger than this, but I want to start this out right here. And we're using just the common foam that you'll find in any hardware store, and some of the cheap stuff here as well, and the stuff that makes a lot of balls that no one really likes. But here, it's just 1-inch foam, glued a bunch of pieces together, and we're going to carve this and make it look something like this here. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to make something that looks like this, and it can make it look like this. Some of the materials I use, very simple stuff. I have a little kitchen knife, okay, a filer, and sometimes I use a chisel. I usually like to use a bigger file, but I've always recently, after doing a lot of carving, this little filer does a lot of great work, as well as this knife. So we're going to use these two as our main tools to carve. And of course, you will have a brush. And yes, this does make a mess, but you know, we're not going to put on the vacuum right this moment, and I'll do that after. So here we go. So I'm going to say, let's say we're going to start right over here. So now this is your terrain here, and you have a lip that's right here, and it's going over the other pieces of foam. I'm going to make that just go, you know, we're going to make a rock out of right here. So we're going to start that here. And so very simple. Get a nice rough edge on the side of the knife. And don't forget, rocks are not all the same. And sometimes I like to go by prototype photos, but sometimes I just like to get an idea of what I want and just go for it. Well, we're going to start with a rough edge here. Very light. So now, you're already getting a nice edge on your rock. And I'm going to leave this the way it is. It's already ripped apart. And you'll see when you paint and everything, and you add some foliage and some brush and all that stuff on here, it will look like an actual rock for sure. So the next step I'm going to do is we're going to file this side down. And the way I do it also, besides using the foam, the knife on the foam, is that here, a nice rough edge. Here, I'm going to have somewhat a smooth edge, and that's what the file works out for. And now here, you have a smoother edge going downward here. Now we have a flat surface here. Not all rocks are really this flat. I don't want my rocks that flat. So we're going to take the edge of the filer. Oh, and we're going to tear this sucker apart. So now we have a soft edge, curved edge, and now some roughness under here. Now we're going to go into underneath here, and we're really going to start carving. And this is when your small filer really comes in handy. And first, we can clean this off, see what we're doing. And do not throw all the stuff away. You save it all. And we'll see. I'll show you why in a minute. Well, maybe a few minutes. So here we go. We're going to start here, down here, and go across. Tear it apart. We want to start a nice rough edge. All right. Clean this up. Now you're already getting a nice rough edges. And sometimes that can look good just the way it is, depending on what kind of rocks you try to make, or if it's blasted out for rock cuts and stuff. Sometimes it's not a bad idea just to keep it like that. But I want to mix some individual rocks too. So we're gonna go in and give this more depth, like a little more 3D too. So let's get our knife. And you can find what knives or tools will work for you. This is what I prefer for me when I use these things. And after carving tons and tons of rocks from foam, it's these two always work best for me. All right, so here I'm going to have a line going this way. I'm going to have rocks going like this, around this way, all down. So we're going to start here. Angle. You really want a hard brush. See, now we're getting some depth inside. the rocks here. I'm going to go middle here, cut some of this out. So now we're starting to have rocks forming right here and over here and in here. I'm going to go a little more. So we're going to do something a little different here on this side. I'm going to take this down this way. And I want to make something that's completely by itself. And now we got a little bit in here, a little bit of that. See how it's curving inside and underneath. So now we're getting different forms of height and different kinds of textures here. And then we're gonna go down here a little bit. And that's on that. Now from here, I'm going to cut something. I'm going to try to make a nice cut, really get a nice line. And we're going to make that an actual rock by itself here. And all these different lines of the stacked foam, you blend it by carving in between it, and it blends in, and you make something out of, make a rock right out of that too. So. Okay. Usually with this, I have some classical music playing in the background or a train video that's soothing. Sometimes I like to listen to excursion videos. Sometimes they have nice music in the background. And the Potomac Eagle video from Green Frog is actually one of the top videos I like to listen to while doing scenery work. I probably listen to it probably a million times while working on this type of stuff, but really soothing and relaxing.
It won't be the case if I sing to you now.
So here, let's see. And, you know, with time permitting, you know, well, since only really an hour to show you stuff, if you really take your time, you can really go in and do some lot of detailed work into these rocks. But a lot of times the painting and the foliage covers that. And if there's a rock that you don't like or it doesn't look right, don't freak out. You can't really glue the stuff back together. Don't worry about it. Put some little pieces of ground turf and little bushes and branches and some trees in front of it, and it will block anything. It will just blend right in. It will look natural. You're getting into the crevices here. And you can see the lines already on this rock and this rock right here. Okay, we're gonna go in here, do another one, and with the file, you really get in there deep, and you can make an individual rock just like that. And honestly, I've watched a few videos on how to do this, and I just constantly experimented and practice. I am not a whiz at this stuff. I'll admit that right away. Nor am I a went to school for carving or anything like that. It's just tons and tons of practice, and then more and more experience. Want to see the big mess I made, right? So here we have the start of all different kinds of rocks and different shapes and sizes. Now we're going to go over here on the sides. Because you may have something that looks like this. And later I'll have a little presentation of a few photos of the progress of building my old scale layout way back in the day when I first started learning how to carve. You can I'll show you a step-by-step process, but all the mountains and tunnels started just like this, looking like this. And so, I'm thinking about maybe having a slope going this way, almost like steps. And then over here, carve out a rock right here. And over here, carve another rock out here. And what we're going to do is, I'm going to make a line there, make a line there, so I know where to go. So there's one right here. And so that way, I know where my rocks are going to be. And here we're going to make some step motion action going down this way. Now, the cool part is when you have these kind of steps, it gives you height. And so you can carve them out because you want to. Otherwise, it'll probably look pretty ridiculous if you're going to put trees and stuff on this. But when you carve them out here, you can add ground turf. After culling the rocks, you add the ground turf. And then you can add trees going upwards. So now you have a variety of elevations in your scenery work. And that's why I stacked them up like this. And I did the same thing on the other diorama that I built here that I'll show you, and we'll go in detail on how I did that as well. So here we're going to go. We're just going to go down.
Hey,
the mountain.
Joey,
Yeah.
it's Gordy. Your audio has gone really choppy.
Okay.
It's as if you're talking into a can. I don't know what's gone on at your end.
Does that work better?
No, it's just gone really terrible.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Your video's fine. It's just your microphone.
Okay, it could probably be the computer. or the Wi-Fi service. Well, what I'll do is I'll continue carving, and then from there we'll see what we can do as far as audio.
Okay.
Alrighty, awesome. I apologize if the audio is choppy. We're gonna do the best we can here today. So what I'm doing here is creating slope action. So if you wanted to build or create a waterfall scene, this is a nice way to do it here. It has little steps going downward into a basin, which would probably be over here if you decide to have a creek. So close up on there. All right. Continue chopping the top. And now we're going to create some individual rocks here, like I was saying before. All right. Again, apologize if there's an audio issue. hopefully we can get that fixed definitely for the next clinic. But for here we have individual rocks right here. Have a slope going downward, and individual layers right here of different rock. See on the front here. Now we have a couple of pieces that I haven't done in here, so I'm going to go in here and just rough it out. And since it's really deep in there, just a few roughings will take care of that. Now it looks like something. So what if I want to carve a nice big rock? And I have let's say I have a divider or a backdrop that is 3D, and I want to make an individual rock right here and go along here. So now we're going to take this example, and I'm going to create individual rocks inside here as if this was a backdrop for a layout, or maybe a mountainside, or just a big rock cut. And let's say you have flat pieces of foam, and let's say to get something over here. Let's say you got a nice big rock cut, right? And the train is right here going past the rock cut. We're going to create that this way here. And now we're talking about flat surface. So first thing first, we're going to rough the heck out of this. I want to get all the smooth off, all that smooth surfaces off, make it rough. Now there's your rough surface. I mean, heck, you can have that, and that'll be good enough if you decide to keep it like that. So we're going to go a little more detail in here. Okay, now I'm going to get a knife, this guy right here, and we're going to start carving out some rocks. Now I'm just drawing lines, just making my lines. Now I'm going to go deeper with the filer here. File. I don't want to do that. It's very thin foam here. So now you have carved out rocks, and you go in there, I'll make different little much smaller ones and all that stuff too. And I'll show you examples on how how I went through the process of building that O scale layout, doing this particular technique. And so fairly quickly, I will. I'm going to get that. I'm going to get a big brush. But I'm going to show you really quickly how it will look like if you was painted. That way, get more of an idea how the rock will look like. I'm just using some regular flat gray paints, cheap acrylic stuff. All right, so here's the rocks can possibly look like. That's just a simple color. What I do is I use sometimes a very light color, like a white, or you can use very light gray as a primer. You always want to prime your foam first before you do any kind of coloring of pigment colors or light washes and stuff like that. Otherwise, it will bleed right into the foam and you'll take forever to get the colors you want. So a nice, maybe a white color for primer will work great. And that's what I did on this particular diorama over here, which I'm going to show you. But this is how some of the techniques I use for carving these rocks. And you can see, they can look pretty realistic once they're colored correctly. You can go way more into detail with them if you like. And here is a nice little rock cut that could go for whatever your heart's desire for what you want to create in your scene. And so we're going to switch gears and I'll show you the diorama that I built here. And this was used the same exact technique that I showed you. So I'm going to go a lot closer. And this is going to be a nice waterfall going downward here, all the way down this way. And it's got a nice little creek bed going that way. And I made some of these trees are Scenic Express super trees, and a lot of it is polyfiber that has been spray painted with brown spray paint, as well as spray glue, and then mixed with all different kinds of foliage to create some fall effects. And actually, I do have a little example here. Back here has not been painted yet. This is the primer color. It's a very light gray. Again, if you like that light color, that doesn't look too bad. But I wanted a much darker look in the front. And so here is colors of stone gray and black woodland scenics pigment. Also a mix of that same gray that I used to paint our example. And I use another color. I used a brown acrylic paint, just flat brown, and then a territorial beige color paint, which is some of the stuff you get at Walmart here. I did first. For coloring was the primer, and then I used the a very light gray of the pigments. Then I went to mix a little browns together, and then I went to take the black and very light, very diluted black, and that way you were able to see all the little details, nooks and crannies of the carved rock here. So, and then we're talking about saving all of this stuff. You can put that in a big bag and take some diluted paint, mix it all together, or dilute it just a little bit. That's not too watery, doesn't bleed too much, and mix it in a bag, shake it all around, and lo and behold, now you have rocks, little tiny pebbles that could go for anywhere around your layout or scenery diorama. And actually, there are some real rocks here. I don't know if you can even tell the difference. And that's the whole point, is don't throw out those scraps. You can use them to make your own rocks. So that's the creek bed with some real branches and roots from the ground right outside and from the backyard. So this is one of the dioramas I have created. I'm going to show a few examples here of the layout that I built about 6 years ago, and some of the newest stuff that I have done for one of the train clubs that I was part of in Smyrna, Tennessee, which is Tennessee Valley Motorero Club. So let's do that here. Okay, so this is the O-scale layout, as you can tell, and I have on the left side some of the rocks carved out here. This is a backdrop and a divider for the opposite side of the layout. It was a 6 by 9 foot layout, and I had 2 different towns, and I wanted to create to show some distance. And here's the start of the tunnel, just layered 2-inch foam all the way on top. Here, all right, we'll go to the next photo. Inside the tunnel, carved out inside the tunnel, so it looks have some rock edge, just painted it a black color. And you can see some of over here, some of the stuff that's carved out over here. Here is the start of a tunnel for a roadway, and this is the rock cut that I created here as a backdrop for the other side of the layout, which represented a town. Here is some carved rock that is for a big waterfall that was going to go all the way down here in front of it. And actually, another cool technique to do is you could take some clear glue. I like the clear Gorilla Glue because actually when it dries, it kind of leaves like a clear coating over it. And if you use that on this rock, just paint it over, it looks like the rocks are wet. Or you can do that for any kind of rocks to show like it just rained. Or if it's in the mountains and it's constantly humid or moist outside, you can show that effect as well. Here is what one of the dividers backdrops looked like before it was painted. And that was just used with the 2 different kind of filers, the big one and the small one, and that same exact kitchen knife. And of course, this was it took me a lot longer to do than just try to do something in 40 minutes. This took me about a week. So you can see you can really go into detail and do all different kind of nooks, different kind of carvings for your rocks. Here's another side. And this is all flat. This was all flat, 2-3 inches. It was about 6 inch deep was the divider. That's why I could really get in there and make some nice, beautiful rocks, big rocks, and have them actually look like really 3D. Here's a corner piece that I made here for the corner that goes right here on the edge of the layout. And this is the base coat or prime coat. I used this kind of white paint before everything was painted. Here's the side of one of the tunnels. This is all carved. On top is all plaster rock. And I made a little cave in the foam here. I think I had a little Sasquatch. I can't find the picture, but I think I had a Sasquatch in there hiding somewhere. And the layout was called the Adirondack Valley Central. So it took place in Adirondack Mountains in New York State. So here is the carved rock on the foam, and here's all the plastered rock. Like I said, I like doing both. I think I counted about 120 different molds on the entire layout. This is what it looked like painted. 2 different shades of coloring here, as you can tell. I think I went back and actually gave it a darker coat. But here is all rock that was made from plaster molds. And over here is all carved. Here's another close-up of the other side with some scenery and some buildings. And you can see some of the pigments in the black showing through, as well as the grays and the browns, and some ground cover here. Here's when I was building an extension for the layout. I had a very small apartment. I don't know why I decided to extend it. I think it got into operations at this point. But here gives a big overall view of the length and the size of the backdrop and the divider. And this is all the carved rock here. And here's one of my favorite shots of the layout before it's even ballast, and shows all the rocks and the as a backdrop. And here you have all plastered rocks that were made from molds and carved out, some of the molds too. And over here is the carved foam rocks right here. And the same idea with the trees from that diorama I showed you just before. Same concept with polyfiber and sprinkled on the ground turf and leaf foliage. Now, this is from the Tennessee Valley Model Railroad Club that I was a part of in Smyrna, Tennessee. And this is the same concept that we just made. For our example is what is shown here, what you can do after it, you carve out the rocks, you paint it, and this is all the ground cover and some of the trees that I made here. The trees actually weren't finished. And then I moved to Arkansas. So, but this is still here on the layout. This is all plaster base. This is all foam right here. And there's the other side. This is the part, this piece right here. Oh, I apologize for that. I didn't going to do that. Here, this plexiglass in front because you could walk over here. And I wanted to keep this bare to show that it is carved foam and looks like a nice rock cut. And I blew on some of the ground cover into the rocks. So it looked like some bushes and just rubbish all over the rocks here, or moss, whatever you want to call it. And here's the left side. And I'm going to slope all the way down here, all the way down to this way. And this is the one we just looked at. And that is the presentation of all the photos. And so if anybody has any questions, I would gladly like to answer them.
There are quite a number of questions.
Excellent.
I just lost my camera. There we are. Okay, first question.
There we go.
Is that ground insulation that you were using there?
On the bottom is ground insulation, and the top is just pink foam. What we use on the top for the example, the pink, that's just regular pink foam you get anywhere, any hardware store.
Okay. you don't know the kind of material that's in that foam, because someone from Sweden mentioned that their foam becomes dangerous when they carve it around.
No, I don't. I forgot who actually makes this, but it's what a lot of modelers use for either construction or for bench work. And so I just use the same material as everybody else has used. That's a common foam.
Regular Home Depot or Lowe's.
Yep.
Insulation.
You can use the green stuff or the blue foam. It's all the same.
Okay, so what do you use to hold the foam together? Glue, screws, pins, or what?
Well, for this was just Elmer's glue, because it's just a really example. But for layout, I use liquid nails, and I use screws in certain places where I know I'm not going to carve. Otherwise, the screws will show. I've been there and I had to redo it. So I use liquid nails, or sometimes even I had like wood glue left over. I used Gorilla's wood glue, so I used that, and I screwed down a lot of the pieces, especially in those mountains, were all screwed along with liquid nails.
So do you know how long the Elmers take to dry, or how long the liquid nails take to settle?
Liquid nails, it dries very, very fast. So if you know, and it's hard to take apart, obviously. With liquid nails, you got to know that if you're sandwiching everything together, going down stuff, know exactly what you're doing right away, because it's really hard to take it off once it's completely down or all layered together. With Elmer's glue, you can kind of take it apart. You have some time; it's a little tackier. But if I know for a fact that what I have is going to stay there for a long time, it's going to be a permanent piece, I would use liquid nails. And actually, all the mountains on the old school layout, not one thing was screwed down or glued down or nothing, because I was planning on moving to a new place and I wanted to make it portable. And ended up throwing half of it out anyway because I went to HO. so either way, that stuff was portable.
So someone said it looks fairly easy when you can pick these foam pieces up and carve them, but is it just as easy when you have it on your layout already?
As far as when it's carved or
Carving it.
Yes. What's good about having it on your layout is that you already set the piece of foam in the environment that where you're going to be, the scene that you're making. You know where the track is, and if you have a prototype photo of what the scenery looks like, then sometimes will make it a lot easier to go by. And here I'm just going off the top of my head, some imagination, creativity, as far as just to see what will look right, what will look good, what not look good, and it's really trial and error. And it's really just a journey and just a step-by-step process and reevaluating every time you go forward with the project.
Do you mind showing that knife to the audience close to the camera? They want to know if it has a serrated edge or if it's straight.
It's like something out of a Goodwill, or it's old just regular kitchen knife.
So it has little teeth.
Little teeth, yeah, not big. You don't want to use a butter knife; it won't work that well.
And are there any colors of paint that don't mix well with the pink foam?
I haven't yet, and I haven't really thought about that. And the only reason why is I've always primed the foam with either white paint or very light gray paint, because if you're going to use some kind of paints, it will just bleed right into the foam, and then you'll be there forever trying to make numerous coats out of it. So what I'll do is I'll take a prime, like a regular latex paint, thick coats. Okay, sometimes you may have to do two, maybe just one, and you really have to dab it in there to really get it stuck into the foam and into the little nooks and crannies. So that way you have a white canvas to work on when you start your coloring of your rocks.
Correct. And someone asked if you know if they make gray foam.
I don't know. If they did, I think our lives would be a lot easier. Or less paint.
Skip the whole first coat.
Right, exactly. But you're right. I'd rather use white anyway, because what if you make your rocks purple? So
correct.
If you're using gray, you might have to paint them white anyway. Does you have a clean canvas to work with?
So thank you very, very much. That was all the questions, and we instigated the Facebook group in asking you for a part 2.
Awesome.
So we'll be waiting for you.
Sounds
Thank you
great,
very
Gert.
much.
Thank you, Gert, Gordy, and Marty. Appreciate everything you guys do for us.